Growing up, everyone thought I had the perfect mom. People would literally stop her in the grocery store and thank her for being such an inspiration. She worked as a trauma nurse, volunteered at a youth center, and every year she hosted this massive Christmas drive for underprivileged kids. Everyone adored her. Everyone but me. I was her son, and I knew the version of her that came out when the doors were closed and the cameras were off. My name is Darren. I'm 27 now, but back then I was just the quiet kid that no one really noticed in our neighborhood in Spokane, Washington. My mom, Landy, raised me mostly alone after my dad died in an accident when I was a baby. That's how she always described it, an accident. She never liked to talk about him. Whenever I asked questions, she'd say things like, "He wasn't the man you think he was," or "I'm the only parent you need." I used to think she was just protecting me from something painful. I didn't know she was protecting herself. I didn't really start questioning things until I got older and noticed how different she treated me compared to how she treated everyone else. With other people, she was all warmth and grace, hugging strangers, laughing easily, constantly offering to help. But with me, she was cold. She didn't hit me or anything. It was worse than that. It was constant comments. "You're a drain. You think the world owes you something. You're just like your father." I didn't even know what that meant. One time I got a B on a math test in 8th grade, and she didn't yell. She just looked at me and said, "You're lucky I didn't put you up for adoption when I had the chance." Then she smiled like it was a joke. But it wasn't. She said things like that all the time. My teachers loved her. My friends' parents loved her. And every time I tried to tell someone that things weren't okay at home, they'd look at me like I was insane. "Your mom? Lillian? No way, she's a saint." So I learned to keep my mouth shut. I got a job at 15, saved every cent I could, moved out the day I turned 18. I told people I was just ready to be independent, but really I just wanted to breathe. She didn't even try to stop me. Just handed me a garbage bag full of clothes and said, "Try not to come crawling back." I didn't. For almost a decade, I stayed out of her life. I worked construction, picked up electrical certifications, and eventually started my own small home renovation business. I was never rich, but I did okay. And then last year, I got a Facebook message from someone named Kevin Lynch. The name meant nothing to me. The message changed everything. "Hi, Darren. I don't know if this is appropriate, but I believe I'm your father. I've been trying to find you for years. Please message me back." I thought it was a scam. I almost deleted it, but something made me check the profile. There were pictures of him, a man in his 50s who looked exactly like me. Same eyes, same weird cowlick on the left, same damned smirk. I didn't know what to do. I stared at the screen for hours. Then I messaged back, "You're dead. My mom told me you died in a car accident." The typing bubble popped up almost immediately. "She told you that?" he wrote. "Darren, I was never in a car accident. I've been alive this whole time. I tried to get custody when you were 3, but she moved and changed her name. I had no idea where you were." My hands were shaking. My entire childhood, the way she talked about him, the way she blamed me for everything, the way she said I was just like him, it was all a lie? I spent the next month talking to Kevin every night. He wasn't perfect. He admitted he and my mom had a bad breakup and that they were young and stupid. But he had tried. He showed me court papers, letters he sent that were returned. He even sent me a copy of the PI report he paid for when he tried to track us down. And that's when I started to get angry. Not the kind of anger that explodes, the kind that simmers, the kind that builds. I wanted answers. I wanted the truth, but I knew if I confronted her, she'd deny everything. She was good at that,
twisting words, turning the story. So I made a plan. I decided I would go see her. I hadn't spoken to her in nearly 8 years. She wouldn't expect me to just show up. I told her I was thinking about reconnecting and that I missed her. She replied with a half-hearted, "Oh, I was wondering when you'd stop being dramatic." Same old Lillian. I drove to Spokane that weekend. She invited me in like I was a guest in her house, not my son. Everything was just like I remembered. Too clean, too perfect, too fake. We made small talk. She asked if I had a girlfriend. I told her no. She asked if I'd finally figured out what I wanted to do in life, like my career didn't matter. Then she said it. She laughed and said, "You were such a difficult baby. Honestly, I should have listened to my gut and given you up, but I thought I could fix it. My biggest mistake." I smiled. I had a recorder running in my jacket. I needed people to hear what she was really like. But what I didn't know yet, what I was about to uncover, was much, much worse.
After she said it, after she looked me in the face and told me I was a mistake, she regretted not giving up, I didn't even flinch. I just smiled and nodded like it was funny. But inside, something in me finally cracked. Not out of pain, but out of clarity. I finally saw her not as my mother, not as some unreachably cold figure I was desperate to impress, but as what she truly was: a master manipulator, a liar, and above all, a coward. I left shortly after that conversation, told her I had a long drive back and didn't want to be caught in traffic. She didn't hug me, she barely looked up. And as I closed the door behind me, I didn't feel sadness. I felt like I had just walked out of a crime scene. When I got home, I started listening to the recording again and again. It wasn't just about the insult. It was her tone, the way she said it so casually, so reflexively, like she'd been holding on to that thought for years and it was just part of her natural vocabulary. And that got me wondering, what else would she say when she didn't know someone was listening? So I called a buddy of mine, Tyler, who works in smart home installations. Told him I needed some security upgrades for my mom's house. A couple of voice-activated recorders, some cameras discreet enough to be hidden in plain sight. He didn't ask too many questions. 2 days later, I showed up at my mom's again and pretended I was trying to help her upgrade her tech. "You live alone," I said. "What if something happens and you can't call anyone?" She rolled her eyes, but she liked the idea of showing off a fancy system. Within 2 hours, I had 6 devices installed. 2 audio monitors in the kitchen and living room, 1 in her bedroom smoke detector, 2 small pinhole cameras tucked near the bookshelf and hallway, and a backup hard drive hidden in the attic that streamed to a remote server I controlled. I told her I'd set it up so she could check the cameras from her phone. She never did. Over the next 3 weeks, I gathered hours of footage. I didn't expect much, just more cruelty, maybe a few conversations that could help me piece together why she lied about my father. But what I got was something else entirely. One day I was reviewing the footage when I saw her on the phone, pacing in the kitchen. At first it was normal, complaints about the mailman, gossip about a neighbor, but then she said something that made me sit up straight. "He came back," she said into the phone. "No, Darren, my son, the one I told you about." Silence. "No, I haven't told him anything. He still thinks Kevin just disappeared, but he's snooping. I can tell. That look in his eyes. He's not dumb like he used to be." Another pause. "Don't worry, I've burned everything that could tie back. If he digs too far, I'll shut it down." Shut what down? I scrubbed forward. The conversation shifted. She mentioned something about payments, about keeping the story straight, about what happened at the cabin, and that's when it hit me. There was something bigger. Something that happened between her and my dad. Something she and at least one other person had covered up. I called Kevin, told him I needed to meet. Not on the phone, not over messages. In person. We met halfway between Spokane and Boise in a Denny's off I-90. He looked older than in the pictures, tired, worn down. But when I told him what I'd heard, he didn't act surprised. He looked afraid. I always thought it was weird. Back then, we were fighting about custody. I wanted weekends, she wanted full control. Then one day, she just left. No goodbye, no forwarding address. And when I finally tracked her to a town 2 states away, she filed a restraining order and claimed I was stalking her. "Were you?" I asked. He looked me in the eye. "No, I was trying to see my son." He reached into his coat and pulled out a wrinkled envelope. Inside were copies of emails between him and someone named Jeanette, my mom's cousin, I later found out. In one of the emails, dated 1999, Jeanette wrote, "Lillian told me if Kevin ever finds out what happened up at the cabin, she'll lose everything. Custody, license, reputation. She said she had no choice, that it was him or her." My blood ran cold. "What happened at the cabin?" I asked. He just shook his head. "I don't know. She never let me near the place. It belonged to her uncle. Burned down a year later in an electrical fire. Or so she claimed." I didn't sleep that night. I went back through every recording I had, every shred of memory my mom had ever made about the cabin. There was one, a brief sentence she muttered once after a few glasses of wine when I was 14. I remember it because it was the only time she ever sounded shaken. She whispered, "Sometimes I wish I hadn't gone to the cabin that night." I thought she meant something romantic, but now I knew better. Something happened there, something worth lying for, hiding for, running for. And I was going to find out what it was, no matter what it took.
I started digging. The cabin, the custody battle, the restraining order, and especially the name Darren, all of it had to be connected. I searched county records for anything tied to my mom's family cabin in Montana. Turns out, the property burned down in March of 2000. Official cause, electrical failure. But something didn't add up. A fire inspector's report, scanned into a digital archive I found on a third-party database, mentioned suspicious signs of accelerant use and inconsistent electrical wiring damage. No criminal charges were filed. Why? Because the report was buried. It wasn't submitted through standard channels. And the inspector who wrote it? He died in a car crash 6 months later. Now I was spooked. I told Tyler, my tech friend, to help me scan for anything unusual in my mom's cloud backups. He was hesitant at first, but when I told him I suspected she framed my father to win custody, he was all in. After a few days, Tyler found something in an encrypted folder on one of her old iPads. It was a voice memo, dated March 2000, the same week as the cabin fire. The quality was terrible, but I could still make out 2 voices. My mother's and another man's. "No one can know," she said. "He'll ruin me, Darren." "Then we make it look like an accident," he replied. Then silence, and then the faint sound of flames crackling. I sat there in silence. That was it. That was the moment they planned it. My mom and Darren set fire to that cabin. Whether my father was inside, I didn't know, but he had disappeared right after that week. Maybe they framed him. Maybe they scared him into vanishing, or maybe worse. I sent the memo to Kevin. He didn't respond right away, but the next morning I had 3 missed calls. When I called him back, his voice was shaking. I think I know where he is," he said. "Not your dad, Darren." Apparently, Darren had moved to a small town in Oregon under a different last name. He was a contractor. Kevin sent me a photo. It was him. Same voice, same face, older, heavier, but definitely the guy in the memo. I booked a flight that night. I didn't know what I was going to say. I didn't even know if I was ready, but I knew this. I couldn't let it go. My entire life, I thought I was the problem. Turns out, I was the one person who saw through the lie, and now I had a chance to tear the whole thing down. The flight to Oregon felt like it lasted a year. I didn't sleep, didn't eat, just sat there replaying that audio over and over with headphones on, memorizing every tone in Darren's voice. I knew I couldn't go in guns blazing. If I accused him, he'd clam up. So I played it differently.
When I got to his house, a small ranch-style place in a quiet cul-de-sac, I pretended to be a reporter doing a story on wildfires from the early 2000s. Told him I was documenting survivors and property owners who were affected. He hesitated at first, squinting like he recognized something about me. But then he opened the door and invited me in. "I get a lot of those calls," he muttered. "Guess people still care about what burned down 25 years ago." Inside, it was clean but cold. Not messy, but like a man who doesn't decorate because he doesn't want people looking too close. We sat in his kitchen. I pulled out my phone like I was going to record an interview. He nodded, unfazed. I asked him about the fire, about the cabin. He claimed he'd barely remembered the details, that he wasn't even there that week. Then I played the clip. Just 6 seconds. Her voice, "No one can know." His voice, "Then we make it look like an accident." And silence. He didn't blink. He just froze. His jaw twitched, barely. And then he looked down at the table and said, "You're her son, aren't you?" I didn't answer. He stood up slowly and poured himself a drink, something strong, judging by the smell. I told her we'd get caught one day, that lies like that don't stay buried. But she had her reasons. "You don't know what Kevin did." Tell me what he did." Darren didn't speak for a long time. Then, finally, he said, "She said he hit her, that he was going to take you and disappear. She was scared. I believed her. I helped her get full custody. I helped her start over. But I didn't know she'd burned it all down. She said it was symbolic, that she needed to make it final. But when I heard you were still looking, I knew she hadn't told you everything." I asked the question that had haunted me for weeks. Is my dad still alive? Darren stared out the window. He was. I saw him once, years ago, in Idaho. He looked like a ghost. Didn't talk, just walked past me like I wasn't there. I think he lost everything after the court stuff. I recorded all of it. His confession, his guilt, his admission that my mother manipulated everything. It wasn't perfect. No court would arrest them based on old voice memos and half-hearted confessions, but it was enough to burn their reputations to the ground. Enough to end the lie. On my flight back, I edited the audio, cleaned it up, backed it up in 5 separate places. And when I got home, I did the one thing my mother always feared. I posted it all. Every word, every clip, in a 23-minute YouTube video titled, "My Mother Lied to Destroy My Father. Here's the Proof." Within 24 hours, it had 80,000 views. Local news picked it up. Family members, ones I hadn't heard from in years, messaged me in shock. Some were angry. Some were relieved. My mother called me 5 times. I didn't pick up. Then she left a voicemail that chilled me to the bone. "You don't know what you've done. You think this is justice? You think this makes you a hero?"
After the video blew up, everything changed. My mother went silent. My aunt, her sister, called and begged me to take it down. Said Mom was having panic attacks, that she hadn't left the house in days, that people from church were confronting her in grocery store aisles. I told her the truth doesn't go away just because it's inconvenient. I had spent my whole life living under the weight of her secrets. Now she could carry the weight of the truth. But there was still one thing left. I had to find him. My father. Kevin. Not the myth. Not the ghost. Not the name they erased from every photo. The man. It took weeks. I followed old property records, tax data, mail forwarding logs, even traced an old P.O. box registered under his name in Idaho. Finally, I found an address in northern Wyoming, a 1-bedroom cabin with no internet, barely on the grid. When I got there, it was dusk. The place was surrounded by trees, quiet,
almost too quiet. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Then finally, the door opened. He looked older, thinner, more weathered than I ever imagined. His beard was white. His eyes were distant, like he wasn't sure if I was real. "You're him," he said. I nodded. "I'm James, your son." He didn't cry. He didn't smile. He just opened the door wider and said, "Come in." We sat by a wood stove. No TV. Just silence. I showed him the recordings. I told him what I knew. And for the first time, he told me what happened. "She lied in court," he said. Claimed he was violent, fabricated documents, paid off a therapist to testify he was unstable. After he lost custody, he went to the cabin. The same one that burned. She showed up days later. They fought. He left. He said when he heard it burn down, he knew what she was doing. Erasing evidence. Erasing him. He didn't fight back because he thought it would destroy me if I got caught in the crossfire. "I stayed away," he said, "because I didn't want you growing up in a war." I told him I grew up in a war anyway. Just one I didn't know I was in. We talked for hours. Days. I stayed a week. Learned about his life, his regrets, his silence. And for the first time in my life, I saw what a version of my childhood could have been. Not perfect, but honest. Before I left, he hugged me. "You're braver than I ever was," he said. "And I'm sorry I left you with her." Back home, things didn't go back to normal.